find myself super funny.
I built 2 massive cubes.
Tinder in real life form.
In this modern age, we are all at war. We're not fighting with violence to gain power, we are fighting to protect our attention. And most likely, you are losing this war. There are billion-dollar companies spending millions so the best software engineers in the world can create algorithms that keep you hooked and steal your attention. That's why the average user picks up their phone 1,500 times a week for an average of 3 hours and 16 minutes a day. That's 98 hours a month. That's 1,176 hours a year. That's 94,080 hours, or just over 10 years of your entire lifetime. We are all giving away the one true resource that we have, and this war on attention is only going to get worse with the development of AI and the effortless modern convenience of our world. So we need to learn how to fight it, because your attention is your life. You are what you pay attention to. How we spend our waking hours each day molds who we are, what we think about, and our future outcomes. That's why today I'm going to outline 3 war tactics that we can use to protect our attention. And I'm not just going to tell you, I'm going to show you, because I need this advice myself more than ever. You see, I have large goals and high standards for myself, and I find myself falling into the same traps that steal my attention. And quite frankly, I'm sick of it. So for 1 week, I'm going to go and really fight this war. And I'm going to take you with me. So the first thing we need to do to win this war is set up roadblocks that stop the attacks of the enemy. And what this means is using environmental and technical factors along with some high stakes to prevent the enemy from striking. And that's why I'm here now with Jacob. Now Jacob, you don't know why I'm filming you, do you?
I don't know.
Well, there's a special reason, right? I'm making a video about attention spans, and I've set myself a challenge, right? In this envelope is £100 in cash. If I do not complete the 4 rules of my challenge over the next week, this is yours. You can keep it, and if I succeed, then I'll have it back. If I don't, it is yours.
I like that.
Decent, we'll see how I do. I also got Jacob to set up my screen time passcode, so whenever that dreaded sand timer appeared, there was no way of me getting through it. I also made a small change that whenever I was doing work that needed a high amount of focus, my phone was constantly out of reach. As well as that, I didn't allow myself to eat at my desk, so then that space became a place of focus and work rather than a place of leisure. And these techniques might sound childish or something because you're putting external rules upon yourself, but they are unbelievably powerful. Especially if you know deep down that you are someone that isn't very blessed when it comes to discipline or willpower, but you genuinely want to make changes, then the best thing you can do is make it pretty impossible for you to relapse. And that's what putting roadblocks in front of the enemy does. It stops them in their tracks before you really even have to start fighting. So it's day 2 and I'm feeling pretty good at the moment about this challenge, because just the idea that Jacob has that 100 quid that I could definitely lose if I make a mistake is giving me a boost of motivation to stick to the process. You know, accountability is so key when it comes to making any changes. If you just have someone you know will support you, where you can say, look, I want to make this change in my behavior, then you are so much more likely to actually carry out that change, because you know there is someone watching to see if you actually get it done. I hope that my feelings about this challenge can remain over the next few days, but we will see what happens. Now, often when we're at war, it's extremely useful to confuse the enemy in some way. Catch them off guard, be predictable, because that's what puts them on the back foot and makes you seem like a bigger threat. That's why our second war tactic to protect our attention is to tactically retreat from time to time. What this means actionably is that we'll be tactically abstaining from the sources of instant gratification that grip our attention. Naval Ravikant is a very smart guy, and what he said on the Joe Rogan podcast in 2019 sums up this war tactic perfectly.
Most of modern life, all our diseases are diseases of abundance, not diseases of scarcity, right? Old times I may have starved. Old times, if I got sugar, that was a wonderful thing. I should have eaten all the sugar I could get my hands on. If I'd gotten a piece of news or gossip, that was interesting data. That would have helped my life and moved me forward. If I'd gotten some brief amount of entertainment, whether through video games or magazines or whatever, that would have been good. Now it's all diseases of abundance. We are overexposed to everything. So the way to survive in modern society is to be an ascetic. It is to retreat retreat from society. There's too much society everywhere you go. Society in your phone, society in your pocket, society in your ears. Everyone's trying to program everybody. The only solution is turn it off.
So it is day 4 now, and to do this tactical abstinence thing, I've had to do some quite out of the ordinary stuff. For example, for months now, I've been watching a bit of YouTube or of Netflix when I have a meal, but to abstain a little bit from that dopamine, I've been having some meals where I just stare at my wall while I eat. And that doesn't sound like much, does it? That doesn't sound like a big change at all, but when you sit quietly with yourself after being so used to constant stimulation, it makes you realize how much you would usually rely on those things. And it's certainly been nice at times to be present with my meal, present with my food, and really taste all the flavors and stuff, and also to protect that 100 quid that's still on the line, you know, that's still looming in the background of my conscience. I'm gonna go and do a workout now with no headphones, with no music at the gym, which is interesting. I wonder how much we rely on like the beat drop of a song to go and train, and whether we would be as consistent with exercise, whether I'd be as consistent with exercise if it was just me and the weights that I lift. But yeah, we'll see. Now, I want to go into some of the theory of why this abstinence works physiologically, so we can understand why it's important that we abstain from certain activities to protect our attention. These days, dopamine gets a bad reputation. With trends like dopamine detox and dopamine fasting all over the internet, it can sometimes seem as if this neurochemical is something we should be afraid of. But in reality, we always have dopamine in our system because we need it for vital functions like movement and general well-being, not just for drive and motivation. The reason that dopamine gets a bad reputation, and I learned this mainly from the work of Andrew Huberman, is when we have a large spike and a large peak in our dopamine levels. Dopamine remains at a pretty consistent level most of the time, but it will spike when we have a very stimulating experience, like cake, like video games, like a funny Instagram reel. And when that spike is over, the level of dopamine in our system actually falls below the baseline. And if you constantly spike your dopamine throughout, let's say, a day, then your dopamine baseline will actually start to reduce. And that's why people who feel constantly overstimulated struggle to motivate themselves. They have just blasted their dopamine system to the point where their dopamine baseline is so low they don't have the activation energy to do things. They aren't just lazy and destined to procrastinate. They just don't have the dopamine fuel in their system. And once you notice that, that's a problem that we can then do things to solve. When you tactically abstain from the certain behaviors that spike our dopamine, your baseline can then recover and begin to rise again. Without the constant peaks, you don't get the drops below baseline, and therefore your motivation and general well-being stays more consistent. Although we don't want to completely hide from stimulating things, because let's be honest, like cake is nice and I do enjoy a funny Instagram reel. So what Andrew Huberman suggests is that we create a variable reward system. This means that we can enjoy a dopamine spike from time to time, but we don't rely on it to feel good, and we don't rely on it to take part in our day-to-day activities. So every so often, I will watch something while I eat a meal because I enjoy that, and it does enrich my life to a certain degree, but I will not be enslaved by that source of dopamine, and I will not rely on it. Sometimes I can just be present with my meal. So it's day 5, and today I've struggled a little bit. I've had a lot of time to fill. I haven't had much on, and I've been struggling to focus. And as much as I've done some things that needed to be done, I would usually fill this kind of time on an average day with stuff that properly grips my attention, which obviously with this video and this challenge I can't do. So it's been interesting to kind of go deeper into my mind. I've realized that this might just be a necessary wall. I think it is just a necessary wall that I have to overcome throughout this process, and feeling better, having greater peace of mind will come on the other side of that. But what's got me through and stopped me relapsing today is 2 ideas. One is obviously the 100 quid that's on the line that I don't want to lose, but also there's a tweet from Alex Hormozy that always pops into my mind in moments like this. And he says, whenever I get to a low moment and I question, why do I even bother? I just try to remind myself, this is when most people stop, and this is why they don't win. You know, whenever you embark on a journey of trying to improve something in your life, there will always be constant challenges, and you will always question, should I stop? Should I continue? And I've had those for months straight on with this YouTube channel and with everything else that I do. And we need something be it a mindset frame or a quote that can just push us through those small moments, those little decisions on a daily basis of, do I persist with doing what I need to do? So those ideas have got me through today. Now let's address the third and most powerful war tactic we can use to protect our attention. If we think about an actual war, what is the fundamental factor that makes one side win against the other? Now, I'm no war expert, but to me, what comes to mind is the strength of the army. The number of people, the competence and strength of these people, the resources, the artillery. Strong armies win wars. So how do we make our army fighting against the forces trying to steal our attention stronger? Well, in our case, strengthening our army means protecting our mental health. Does the guy who is content in his life and that feels fulfilled on a daily basis get lost and gripped by instant gratification? No, he doesn't. When you really break it down, the only times that we do things that aren't good for us is when we're trying to escape an emotion or a sensation that we are experiencing. The biggest ROI move that you can make to protect your attention is to be happy. But I know I've said in the past on this channel that happiness is a difficult thing to aim for because it's so elusive and unpredictable. And that's why the way I like to view it is that there are 5 fundamental pillars of good mental health based on the actions that we can take and apply it to our life. And when we have these in order, it increases the chance that happiness will come along. And to build the strength of my army this week, I've been putting a conscious effort to hit these 5 pillars throughout the week. And I must say, it made a good bit of difference. I don't think I would have been able to get through the rules that I put on myself if I hadn't been consistent with my sleep, with my nutrition, with my exercise, with my social connections, and with the meaningful work that I do. Those are the 5 ingredients in the recipe to bake the cake of happiness. And as much as it's great to be tactical and intentional and set roadblocks and abstain from sources of instant gratification, like these hacks, these tricks, they aren't necessary if you enjoy your life. By no means am I trying to tell you that it's easy to do this, because it's really not. It's taken me 3 years to try and apply these 5 pillars to my life, and I've just made a certain amount of progress. And I know that completing this will take the whole rest of my lifetime, probably. But that's the beauty of it. And if there's one takeaway that I really want you to have from this video, is that you should go back to the basics of your mental health. Am I sleeping enough? Am I eating enough? Am I seeing people that I love as often as I need to? Because every YouTuber will try and tell you the top 5 tips to reduce your screen time. But it's like, no, that screen time is a bandage for the pain inside of that human, for the emotional distress. It's just a symptom of a much bigger problem, and the real solution comes from looking at the deep cause. And the deep cause is bloody uncomfortable to look at. It might be that you have poor mental health, or you don't enjoy your life, or that you need more positive experiences. But looking there, although it's uncomfortable, is the exact thing you need to do. So it's day 7 now, and in just a few hours I would have completed this challenge. And I'm proud of my commitment, and I'm proud of how I have overcome the struggles. However, this was just one battle. The war is far from over, and we are always going to have to keep fighting. The enemy will continue to get smarter as time goes on, so we will have to continue to fight, to strengthen our army, to strengthen our mental health, because that's really the only way that we're going to get through this attention crisis. Your life needs to be yours. That's the underlying reason that we do all of this. One of my biggest fears is the idea that I am literally giving years of my life to organizations and companies that literally do not give a shit about me. Your time and attention is so precious. When you're older, when you're in your 60s, 70s, 80s, if you're lucky enough to get there, you will give everything you have then to have the time and attention that you have at your disposal right now. So you have to protect it. You have to fight this war because it's the most important thing in the human life, potentially. And if you're looking for actionable ways to apply the 5 pillars of mental health that I mentioned in this video, you can watch this here, where I showed the process that I use to keep myself as content as possible. But while you do that, I need to go and get my £100 back. Thank you, sir.
Best I've ever done, so